Let's discuss. So it's another article I ran across. Shows that the median age of all home buyers is now 56, whereas in 1981 it was 31. Now, what's your opinion on why this is taking place? Me personally, I feel like one of the main reasons is that you know the average home U.S. price, well, excuse me, the average price of a home in the U.S., if I'm not mistaken, is around about 400,000, and home affordability is it's at an all time low currently, and I think it just real estate is just higher than what it was, in relation to what people were making, back in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, and even on top of that too, I feel like people are getting married later, they starting families later, like I don't know. I'm from the South. I'm from North Carolina, so I know for a fact. Like you talk to, a lot of times you talk to your parents, grandparents, or great grandparents. They living, a lot of them they bought, they got married, had kids, and they bought a house. Some of them was teenagers or early 20s bought a house, and then trickle down to my generation. Like a lot of people, they 40 and don't, and not even a homeowner. I think that's part of it, and also too, I feel like too in this generation, in this time we in with social media, I think a lot of people, which is a lot different than you think of the yesteryears as far as my parents, grandparents' age, um, they didn't care so much about how it looked. As far as like now, I feel like people starter homes, or their dream of a starter home is just out of this world. I feel like back in the day, like shoot, it'd be a husband, wife, two or three kids. They'll rock out with a two bed, one bath. Like a little ranch, style home. Whereas now, shoot, you take a husband, wife, and a couple kids. Shoot, they want a five bedroom, five bed, three bath. You know, and also I think that's part of it is social media, like what you're seeing online. Like it doesn't look as good. You buy your home, you want to show your accomplishments. Hey, bought my home. And then it's, like a two bed, one bath little ranch house. Like, people kind of ashamed of that. Like they'd rather just rent and be like, look, I don't wanna buy this type of home. Not realizing that the longer you wait, real estate is always appreciating. So that same house that you were waiting on is getting more expensive year by year. So like I said, I just feel like people, like I said, that social media to me plays a huge difference. Like, I think you ask the average person now, about a starter home, they probably gonna tell you three or four bed, two or three bath, two car garage, and all of that. Like you talk to your parents and grandparents, shoot, they might have had a carport, you know, if that, and they were rocking out with it and content with it. I just feel like, like I said, social media just changed stuff so much to where people's aspirations, to me is it's a lot for a starter home. Like me personally, I bought my first home. I got married young, started a family young, but I bought my first home. I was 19, no 20. I just turned 20, and shoot, it was a foreclosed double wide. You know, but you talk to people nowadays, shoot, they wouldn't do that. I bought that foreclosed double wide. Went in, fixed it. We stayed there for about 8 years, sold it. Got a nice return on it. You think the mortgage on that, of course, this was, you know, real estate was cheaper in general back then, but still, like what I was paying in mortgage, was so low versus, renting. But like I said, it's just, this was pre social media. So, which I don't care what nobody think anyway, but I'm just saying, I think social media, a lot of people, they would be embarrassed to do that. Like I said, I stayed there 8 years, sold that, and then bought, the quote unquote dream home, the four bed, 2-car garage, brick, all that type of crap. But I just feel like nowadays people want their first home to be that 4, 5 bedroom house, you know. And I think by doing that, you get this, like, people, they're older now, Like I said, what do you think? Like I said, in my opinion, that's, in a nutshell, that's kind of what I think the reason for this is. Like I said, families, people getting married later, starting families later. Like I said, people's dream for a starter home, excuse me, is, astronomically higher than what it was pre-social media. Like I said, pre-social media, people cool with 2 bed. Look, the kids sharing rooms nowadays. Parents feel like their kids shouldn't even share rooms. You think back then, it's people buy a house, 2, 3, 4 kids staying in the same room. So somebody now got 3 kids. They looking at it like, okay, we need a bedroom. All the 3 kids need a bedroom, so that's 4 rooms. And then they're like, okay, I need an office, and so after, before you know it, that's 5, 6 bedrooms. It's just different now. But I think this gap is only going to continue to widen, especially, with the way the value of the dollar dropping, they printing money. That's another story for another day. But tell me what you think. What's the difference now between now and 1981? Why is the median age of home buyers? That's a drastic difference right there. Tell me what you think.